So today's video is going to be in two parts. First, I'm going to talk about a near fatal mistake I made with my dresser and how I fixed it. And then the second part of the video, I'm going to talk about some very common problems that we run into when we're cutting half-blind dovetails and how I fix them. So if you want to fast forward to that part, that's fine. No harm done. So let me explain what I messed up, because it was a near fatal mistake, boy. The way I designed my dresser is I have this top railing that is half-blind dovetailed into the sides, and then I'm going to have 3 drawers at the top. So they need dividers that are, again, dovetailed into the front, like that. Now, when I was doing these dovetails originally, they just weren't coming out good, and there was gaps, and I got the 2 pieces together, and when I lined them up, for some reason, I realized that the shoulders were not even. Now, I don't know what happened. It was just a brain fart somewhere along the line, but anyway, it couldn't be salvaged. In other words, I couldn't use these dividers. So there was only 2 ways to fix this. One would be to redo this entire top rail, which would have been a real pain in the butt because it's already half blinded into the sides, or I could redo the dividers. Now, the problem with that is that with half-blind dovetails, usually you do the tails first because you can't get the marking knife inside the mortise for the half-blind to mark it out. But I couldn't do that because I already have the mortises done. So I needed to make the tails from the mortises. So what I decided to do is I took the old pieces and I cut off the tails, which left me these little guys here. Then I made up my new pieces, such like this. And then I took the tail and I put it right there on the back. Now that allowed me to take my marking knife and mark out the new tail, which I just cut out, and that fit perfectly into those mortises. So it worked out great for me. If you have the same problem in the future, maybe you can try it, and I think it'll work for you. So next, let's talk about half-blind dovetails and some common problems that come up when you're cutting them and adjusting them. Now, before I go forward, let me just say that everything beyond this point is under the assumption that you have cut your tails correctly, okay? That means that the shoulders have to be perfect with each other. They have to be level. Everything has to be square. The tail itself has to be square, and it has to be absolutely perfect, okay? If your tail is perfect, then all you have to do is adjust the pins and the mortise. Never touch the tail. If this is perfect, you don't have to worry about it. If this is perfect and you mark it out perfectly, then all you have to do is adjust the pin side and you should have no problems. But let's take a look at some common issues that you run into when you're cutting half-blind dovetails. So in our first example, we've put the tails in. They are flush with the top of the wood and the sides, but when we put them in, you get gaps at the top and at the shoulders, kind of like this. So what's going on here? Well, this means that this surface on the inside of the pin part is shaped like this, if you were to look at it from the side. It's basically a wedge, and your wedge is like that. So looking at it, it's kind of hard to discern, but if you were to take this out and look at it from the side, you'll see that the back part is shaped like that. And this part right here, this wedge, is what is pushing this tail out as it gets put into the wood. So that's what creates the gap right here, if you can see that. And consequently, it will cause a gap between the shoulders and the piece of wood as well. So the way to correct that is to take your chisel and smooth out this inside portion to get rid of that wedge. So in the second example, when you put the tails in, you'll notice that one side is flat up against the inside of the tails, but the outside is not flush with the wood. And consequently, the inside corner is also not flush, and you have a gap here and here. So what this means is that this inside corner is not even. And we go back to our wedge again to give you a demonstration, and basically what's happening is something like that. So this bottom portion is now pushing the tail out that way, which is why you have gaps on the right top and at the shoulder here. So the way to fix that is to adjust the side of this so that this is flat inside. This also goes for if a tail is standing up. For example, like that. Same thing. What's happening is this inside portion is shaped like that. The inside wall is shaped like that, and it's pushing the tail out like that. This is extreme, but that's what it's doing. So you have to go back in, especially if this is a sliding dovetail, you got to go back in and adjust this wall, cut more out to get rid of that wedge. So in my last example, there's a gap at the shoulders. I'm using my thumb to cover up the model so that you can pretend that this is flush with the inside of the mortise, and there's just a gap here at the shoulders. And what this means is that you did not follow my first instructions about having the tail be completely perfect, because now what has transpired is your shoulders are shaped like that. And you have a portion here that is flush with the wood at the bottom, but not at the top, which is why you have this gap in between the wood and the shoulders. So you have to go back in and adjust the shoulders. Unfortunately, that's pretty much a fatal mistake, because you're never going to be able to get that close enough to the wood again. And if you take wood off of here, that's going to mess up the inside and you'll get a gap inside. So, like I said earlier and at the beginning, make sure your tails are perfect before you mark anything out. So these are some common issues that I have encountered in the past when I have cut half-blind dovetails and what I have done to adjust them. I hope it helps somebody. Obviously, there is a list of other problems that could go wrong when you're cutting dovetails, but like I said at the beginning, if your tail is perfect and it's all square at every point on the tail and you've marked it out correctly, then all you should have to do is adjust the pin side, adjust the mortise for the tail, and you should be fine and good to go. So I hope it was helpful to somebody, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.